Hello, hi. Welcome back to Caregiver College. This is an online web series supporting first-time caregivers of aging adults. So thanks again for joining us for our second episode. Our second episode, we are going to show you the second half of Aisha Atkins' talk in terms of what to expect as a first millennial caregiver or as a first-time millennial caregiver. So let's get into the clip.
Is kind of just this expectation that, when your parents get older, you're going to, you're going to look after mama, so to speak, right? But I think what people fail to realize is that it can be very emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually exhausting, and financially taxing as well. And so it's important that we look within our communities to figure out who is capable of helping and in what manner. What I've learned in my personal experience, and it's not been an easy lesson to learn, but it's important to delegate some things where you can. There are certain things that obviously I can't delegate and would choose not to do so, helping, assisting with bathing and other activities of daily living. However, it might be something as simple as picking up a prescription, or dropping off a package if I need to have something mailed. These kind of little errands and things that I felt like I had to carry myself. Delegating these other activities to other members of our community, our neighbors, our family, our friends, has been a tremendous help. And I think that's something else that I think the pandemic has really, I think, created a change around, or made people more aware of, as there was a lot of conversation about how do we help our neighbors to stay safe. And knowing that I live in a high-risk household, with both of my parents, and then with my health as well, people were kind of coming out of the woodwork, so to speak, to find out how they can help. And I think that I hope that that's something that once the pandemic ends, that people will hold on to some of these lessons and some of these values that they've adopted during this time, that they'll bring that with them into the future, because family caregivers so desperately need a community around them, and it would certainly be a shame if people kind of return to normal. I think there's a lot of conversation about the return to normal and people wanting to get things back to normal, but that conversation fails to recognize that for a lot of family caregivers, the isolation and the inability to interact and be engaged in their community in a full capacity, is not new, and that's something they've experienced for potentially for a very, very long time. And so I'm hopeful that this will allow people to maybe empathize a bit more, and pardon me, be more willing to put themselves out there to lend a hand where they can. And some people will be able to be more involved than others, and that's okay. I think it's also important to have reasonable expectations of your family and friends. I had to let go personally of the expectation that certain family members or certain friends would perform at a level that I thought they should. And I had to really I had to take a step back and understand that, everyone has their gifts, their talents, and their capacity. And I can't, it's unhealthy to harbor, resentment or anger at someone's just inability to show up in a way that I would prefer that they do. But I can also shift that focus to folks who are able to provide, what I need in that moment. And so I think identifying the people in your life who can be of help, and figuring out what role each person will play, and doing so early on, and having these conversations very early on, I think it makes a huge difference.
With all of those resources and support and discussion, there's probably still going to be some growing pains. So for the next question, I kind of wanted to ask you, what is some advice in terms of your work as a caregiver, as a care worker, that you have now that you wish somebody gave to you when you first started this work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think uh, from a personal standpoint, when my mother was diagnosed with dementia, I really didn't know much about the disease before, other than kind of what you see in popular culture as someone who is maybe suffering from Alzheimer's disease and experiencing memory loss. And often it's portrayed in a very ageist and ableist, through an ageist and ableist lens. Um, and so, I took to Googling dementia, and um, I think to some degree that was helpful. Certainly, accessing resources like the Alzheimer's Association, and other similar organizations, was a positive experience, and gave me a lot to at least guide, whether it was seeking a specialist who could help diagnose the disease, more specifically, or looking for support options. I will say that you can kind of end up in a black hole, and with just kind of drowning in information, and not knowing what to do with that information. And so I think, relying on medical professionals, and other folks within your kind of your care network to help you sift through some of that information and find out what is true and what is validated, I think is really important. Um, and can help kind of contain some of the anxiety and the fear that you may be experiencing when a loved one is diagnosed with a terminal illness. And I think that can apply to cancer and ALS, Parkinson's, any condition where the outcome can be grave. I would also say, gosh, I think being honest with the people in your life about what's going on, and setting reasonable expectations, and I think telling people what it is that you need from them, and also what it is that you are able, um, how you're able to show up for them in their lives, what you're able to do, what you're unable to do. I think it's really about setting boundaries, setting expectations. And I think that's something that I didn't quite know how to do, or that I was maybe afraid to do. Speaking with older family members and relatives, although I am a full-grown woman, there's kind of still this fear around being seen as being disrespectful, when really it's just having a direct conversation between two adults. And I think, being able to set those expectations early, and with the understanding that they may change, they may evolve over time, I think is really important. But I think I did some of the right things with, looking for support pretty early on. And so that's something I also would encourage folks to do. There are a lot of Facebook groups for caregivers that I found really helpful, and those for younger adults are really starting to pop up. And so I think, getting involved with those as much or as little as you want to, and then managing your interaction with that, because I think one caveat with that is, we know how kind of how social media can work with disinformation, or just kind of interactions that can perhaps be a little triggering. But I think really early on for me, knowing that I wasn't alone as a caregiver made a huge difference. So really just kind of recognizing what you need, and then taking steps to attain that and achieve it.
So again, thank you so much for spending some time with us, and thank you to everybody who was viewing this. We hope that it was helpful, and so thank you.